Hello and welcome to the oddschecker betting show. I'm your host, George Elek, and this is the day 2 of Aintree preview, the Friday of Aintree, and I'm joined by two very, very special guests in the form of Andrew Thornton and Ed Quigley. Two guys who, Ed, as you just told me, I should actually be asking you about the racing at Sedgefield on Friday rather than racing at Aintree, because you guys are going to be together at Sky Sports Racing then. But I think it's an unbelievable weekend of sport. We recorded the Masters preview this morning, which any listener who's interested in golf can find on Oddschecker's YouTube channel and on the and any podcast apps as well. But Ed, this is an unbelievable weekend of sport, and Aintree very much at the front of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love this week. Yeah, the Masters and Aintree dovetailing together, fantastic, isn't it? You get everyone, or at least you do. The old racing post offices when I was there, used to get everyone trying to crack the old Masters Grand National double.
Spring double.
And, the spring double is the big spring double. But no, brilliant stuff. 3 days of Aintree. Really looking forward to it. Sounds like sun shining in Liverpool. It'll be lovely ground and some. Obviously, the declaration's been dropping in for the Thursday, and some quality contests to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrew, happy memories of Aintree from back in the riding days?
Did I have many happy memories? There were few and far between. I'd have to go a long way back to give you my happy memories. My happiest memory was my first ride at Aintree as an amateur jockey. Was a winner, a horse called Castle King. Back in 1992, won the amateur riders race, the race that used to be the Novice Handicap Chase after the National. And beat Marcus Armitage on Way of Life, trained by Stan Meller. Now, there's some iconic names. Marcus Armitage, Stan Meller, and then I came a long way down the pecking order. But as far as the National was concerned, but I think I had 13 rides in it. My first 4 rides, 3 of them got round and finished 4th. Sadly, my next 9 didn't. So experience counts for absolutely nothing. All you get is more bad experiences. Laid at the back of Beecher's Brook with Jamie Osborne and about 3 or 4 others jumping into the back of the ambulance on the way home. So yeah, it's a fun meeting, even from a jockey's perspective. It's the pressure is Cheltenham. It's pressure. Aintree, a happy release as much as anything. And David Nicholson, back in the day, always used to say to his jockeys, he got Cheltenham out of the way, and when they all went to Aintree, make sure you enjoy yourself. That was it. Out on the track as well as that, and it was just a lot more of a relaxed atmosphere.
Well, you mentioned the Grand National there, and I mean, today we're going to be previewing, in this podcast and video, we're going to be previewing Friday's racing. We've previewed Thursdays as well, so do go and look for that if you haven't heard it already. And then on Thursday, Andrew, you and I will be joined by Andy Holding as we look ahead to Grand National Saturday and do that, hopefully some justice too. The time is 12:05 with us at time of recording on the Tuesday. So as it stands, Fridays, we haven't got final decks in for Friday. So there's going to be a little bit of guesswork going on as we preview these races as to who will be running where, but we'll do our best to make sense of it. And do download the Oddschecker app as well for the very best prices, the best bookie offers, place terms, free bets, and some of the best tipsters in the game direct to your app in the morning of each day's racing, including Andy, who, as I say, doesn't join us today, but will join us for the Saturday preview. Now, as I say, we're recording this on Tuesday, so there aren't any prices at the moment for the 145 or the 515, the 2 handicap hurdles that flank the graded racing on the day. So we're going to start with the 220, which is the top Novices Hurdle. And My Drogo heads the market at 7-2 ahead of Dusart at 5-1. Now, third time lucky at the time of recording is as short as 7-2 favourite with some firms, but is 7-1 currently with Bet365. So apologies, as I have a feeling by the time this goes out, that 7-1 will be a thing of the past. Any News 8-1, Tritonic 8-1 with most firms, Bet365 ducking it, go 5-1. Agero 8-1, 10-1, Bet Belfast Banter 10-1 for Pleasure, 12-1 Bar, and Ed, the difficulty with doing these previews at this stage are just after final decks on for Thursday's racing is that the market is all over the place. But at current prices, who are you looking at here?
It's interesting, George. My Drogo, of course, has got the option, the 2.5 mile on Saturday for the Skeltons. And if that were up to me, that would be where I'd be going with him. I thought he looked the better the further he went over 2-2 at Kelso last time out. And of course, Dan Skelter team have third time lucky in here. A bit of a head scratcher, not quite sure the complexion of race at the moment. I mean, Dusart was the horse who was highly touted, wasn't he, earlier in the season? Beat Soaring Glory in really convincing fashion at Newbury and was single figures of the spring novices. Had a little setback just before Christmas, which consequently caused him to miss Cheltenham. Nicky Henderson said, he said, look, it's not a case he's really injured. It's a case he's just had a niggle and Cheltenham will be too much of a rush. So we won't rush him back for the festival. We'll leave him, bring him back for Aintree. And yeah, he won really nicely, didn't he? He looks an exciting prospect. But as I said, there's a few little bit of guesswork as to who's actually going to line up in this. I think there's a few, as you say, pieces of jigsaw still to see. So I'm tentative views on this, but I do think Dusart looks a really exciting type. But I do just hope with my Drogo they go the 2.5 mile route, because I think especially on conditions which are going to be lively enough up in Liverpool. He's a big striding type. He'd be a wonderful chaser next year over 2.5 and 3 miles. And he's obviously unbeaten over hurdles. And I just say, if you watch that Kelso run back last time out, the further they went, the better he went. So I think third time lucky or running the 2 mile for the Skeltons. My Drogo will probably go the 2.5, but I think Dusart is the exciting one with the potential here.
Yeah, the market suggests you're probably right with third time lucky 7-2 in places, the same price as my Drogo. The market's shifting the way that would make you think that the Skeltons are going to run third time lucky here, and my Drogo on Saturday. Andrew, who takes your fancy in the top novice?
I do like Dusart. I mean, you can't. He only having had one start. It's not really the Nicky Henderson route, is it? To drop straight into a Grade 1 after one start. But I think it's more circumstances than anything else. Has bags of toe, and as you mentioned, the Soaring Glory form around Newbury looks very, very good. A Gero of Kim Bailey's has done nothing but improve off a mark of 125. And won four races on the bounce in very good fashion. I think it's very tough as well. Third time lucky. Harry Skelton could have had his time again. It was a poor ride at Cheltenham. Full stop. Dropped in, suddenly bang there at the top of the hill with 5 furlongs to run. Got there far too soon and just ran out of gas. It just wasn't a great ride. And you just wonder how much that race will have taken out of him. That would be my worry for third time lucky. Coming off, it's a quick turnaround after Cheltenham. And you always have that worry that with, the big festival, he put everything up in that race and he was tired when he finished. So that would be my worry for third time lucky. Whereas Dusart, as fresh as paint coming in here, I would imagine for pleasure will run in here, so that'll blow the race open. They'll go an end-to-end gallop. And to be honest, for pleasure is probably the benchmark as much as anything, because I thought ran a blinder at Cheltenham, didn't go 30 lengths clear like the horse had done previously. And if anything, is settling down with racing, which is what you like to see. But what you will get is in a race like this, you don't want to see them crawling early doors. You want to see an end-to-end gallop. That'll suit third time lucky, but my worry is the quick turnaround after the hard run. And that's the reason I'd be in the Dusart Agero camp, because Agero hasn't had hard races. Confidence is sky high and is improving at a rapid rate of knots. And this is the logical next stage. But what you saw from Dusart on debut, a horse that goes well fresh, would it worry you Nicky Henderson going straight into Grade 1? No. Potential's there. It's not the deepest contest from what I can see. You've got third time lucky, who was well fancied in a county hurdle. A county hurdle's a handicap. It's not a Grade 1. I think the Dusart looks a cut above average, to say the least.
Dusart 5-1. Agero best price is 8-1, and with Agero, for Kim Bailey. David Bass already jocked up, so you shouldn't have any issues with whether or not Ajay will run or being well. A couple there for Andrew, and good to see Andrew and Ed both agreeing that Dusart looks the quality customer here in the 220 at Aintree. Moving on then to the Mildmay, and Chantry House is the 2-1 favourite ahead of Espoir de Rome, Chamblou 7-1, Fiddler on the Roof 7-1. Of course, a cracking run behind Monkfish last time out at Cheltenham. Happy Go Lucky just coming second in the Ultima, failing to quite land that gamble again for Kim Bailey. The Shunter is priced up at 8-1 at the moment. The Big Breakaway 8-1, Remastered 14-1. Plenty of horses kind of 14-1 or bigger. Andrew, sticking with you here, Chantry House, the rightful favourite, I'm guessing, or are you going to be looking to back a horse each way against him?
I think he's the rightful favourite because I think the triple suit him down to the ground. I would say, you look at what he did at... he's never going to be a flashy horse. We saw him, it was unfortunate what happened at Cheltenham with NY Allen. But there's nothing to say that NY Allen would have got, he was wound up and he was keen, and would he have had it plenty left at the finish? I think Chantry House is the type who only just does what he has to do. A little bit lazy once he hits the front, and it's what you like to see. But again, off the back of horses been at Cheltenham, again, you never know how it's going to have affected them in the respect of how they're going to come out the race. Kim Bailey's Espoir de Romane, I think, is a real interesting take on this. Has only had the 3 runs so far this season. He's a very good jumper. I think ground conditions will be absolutely A1. Finished behind Royal Pagaille, obviously Haydock. It was the owner's choice to go with Royal Pagaille for the Gold Cup. It was just the wrong race. Ground was too quick. Should have gone for the other race. But I understand why they went for the Gold Cup.
It doesn't knock the form here, though, does it really?
Sorry?
It doesn't knock the form.
Knock the form, and you've got to bear in mind, Espoir de Romane gave Royal Pagaille £5.
Yeah.
Going into the race. It was the ground that got beat Royal Pagaille. The ground and everything. It was just the wrong race. But that's hindsight, isn't it? But yeah, I think Espoir de Romane coming here a fresh horse off the back of a pop round Leicester. I think is the each way bet to nothing in here. You're taking on horses like, is the Shunter going to line up here or run on the Thursday? You cannot. It's definitely not entered in 5 races. Is it in the National?
It's in the Mares as well. Yeah.
They missed that one out. The fact he hadn't run over 3 miles was irrelevant. But I think it's a fascinating contest. But I do like horses that haven't been to Cheltenham in some of these races to have a crack at the market leaders.
Espoir de Rome 6-1, pretty much across the board as it stands. Ed, are you similarly looking to find an each way play? It's normally your style.
One. Yeah, I was going to say, Andrew does make a good point. You often never know, as the old trainers cliche say, they left their race behind at Cheltenham. Sometimes it's going back through it. If you get your horses, you can back it up and, kind of teak tough and run to their form again. And you do get some horses. I remember going back about 10 years ago, wasn't it? I think it was Corto Star beating it 1-5, Masterminded beating it 1-6, And Paul Nicholls came out and said, look, we geared all these horses to Cheltenham, and they were just spent by the time it came to Aintree 3 times later, and 3 weeks later. And so, touching upon the Paul Nicholls angle, he's sending a lot of horses here fresh, which is something definitely interesting to look at. So,
Ed, can I just mention, going back, you've got to go back a while, but I remember Nicky Henderson's record with horses going to Cheltenham and then coming to Aintree wasn't very good.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
It is all about Cheltenham.
Yeah, exactly. And I was at the time point, the tangent I was going to actually going off on a bit there is Paul Nicholls' mantra of this season is, he's made it quite clear. He thought Cheltenham was A, too many of his horses are badly handicapped, and B, he didn't think, unless you've got a 170 rated horse to run in a Grade 1, I'm not really going to bother. So he's taken a whole battalion of horses here, Paul Nicholls, who look to have serious chances and arriving here fresh as daisies. Back to this race specifically, it does look a fascinating one. I don't really know. I mean, Chantry House looks as though 3 miles will really suit him. Henderson's gone on record. He says, look, I'm finding out here whether we're going King George's and Gold Cups and we're using this as a fact-finding mission, or whether we're going Peterborough Chases and Ryanair's. But essentially, that's what he's basically saying. He wants to know now what this horse's trip is. The way he went up the hill in the Marsh Chase on the new course, he looked shaped like a 3 mile, I think it has to be said. But this sounds like it's going to be brilliant. You're going to get the Tizard second and third from the Festival Novices are both going to run. Big Breakaway, Fiddler on the Roof. Sounds like Dan Scouter's going to run Shamballoo as well. I think this flatter track will probably really suit him on the quick ground. You know, he's an excellent jumper. It's a funny old race. It's a no bet from me. I think in answer to your very first question, George, I think Chantry House is the right favourite. He has to be on the back of his Grade 1 success. But I'm a little bit splinters in my backside here because I'm a bit like Andrew in the sense that you just worry some of these horses did have hard races only 3 weeks ago, what they've got left in the tank. So I'm sitting this one out.
Your only positive on that front is that the ground at Cheltenham wasn't on the slow side, so you're not, the emphasis on pulling them around isn't as much as it would be in previous years when the ground's testing.
Yeah,
that was also to bear in mind. But as regarding Chantry House and the trip, his first point unseated rider. Do you know what won the race?
What won?
Monkfish.
Really?
It was in the same race as Monkfish, Fury Road. It was a very, very good point. So I don't think the trip will be an issue, but it's whether the freshness is the issue.
Interesting there. Chantry House, the 2-1 favourite, but a few interesting types in behind, and Andrew happy to side with Espoir de Rome each way at 6-1. No bet race for Ed. We'll move on to the Marsh Chase, the 325 over 2.5, and Politologue, who of course but was a very late withdrawal at Cheltenham, is the 5-2 favourite. Master Tommy Tucker is 4-1. Fakir D'oudairies seeing some money, a bit of 4-1 still around with Sky Bet and Bet Victor, but as short as 5-2 with Bet 365. Obviously ran behind Allaho, well beaten by Allaho, but that form could be very good indeed in the Ryanair. Back at Cheltenham, Dashel Drasher 5-1, Notebook 6-1, Nutswell 6-1, 14-1 Bar. Ed, sticking with you here, it was a no bet race in the last. Have you got a bet for us in this one?
I'd be with the Paul Nicholls second string here, Master Tommy Tucker, more for the fact that I think Dashel Drasher would like very soft ground, and Politologue's obviously the market leader. But again, you look at all his best form, it's come with plenty of give underfoot. I mean, when he won this, everyone points out he actually hacked up in this race 3 years ago. Yeah, but if you remember rightly, we had a really wet spring. I think it was soft. I mean, soft to heavy in places for the Melling Chase the year he won it. I just wonder this ground might be quite lively by the Friday, and I just wonder if that'll play against him personally. When he won the Chantry Chase last year, it was soft. So yeah, I think Master Tommy Tucker's again. He's one that's by design swerved Cheltenham, come into this contest fresh. I don't think he'll mind a bit of better ground. You know, he actually bolted up at Huntingdon earlier in the season, hard out when he got some decent ground, and ran really well on very testing ground at Ascot last time out behind Dashel Drasher. Back on a livelier surface, I think that could be the key to him. You know, when he won it at Kempton back in January, his jumping wasn't excellent, but again, he got better ground and he just tanked round on the good to soft round Kempton. So I think flat tracks, you know, Kempton's, your Huntingdon's, decent ground, that really plays to his strengths. You know, Haydock as well, he's won at. So I think Master Tommy Tucker he's a bit of a late blossomer, it has to be said. You know, he's 10 now. But I think, you know, as Paul Nicholls says, he's had this race in mind for him for some time. And I like his claims from a value perspective, just because I think Politologue is the class act. But I would just worry about this ground for him. As I said, if you look through his form, a lot of his best, well, all his best form has come with substantial give underfoot. And looking at the weather for Liverpool for Thursday and Friday, it could be, it'll be on the good side of good, shall we say, by the time this race goes to post.
4-1 Master Tommy Tucker. You say he's a late bloomer, and back in the day he used to either win or fall, and he seems to have worked hard to stay on his feet these days, which is a positive. Master Tommy Tucker 4-1 pretty much across the board. Andrew?
Well, I can't see why he turned the form around with Dashel Drasher. Dashel Drasher, he's improving. You may argue that, well, going back, he's obviously his wins have come round Ascot, but he has that bit of a tendency to jump out to the left. Doesn't always mean that they are better going left-handed, but you'd have to put him in the mix. But I'm a big Nutswell fan. He gave Clondor Castle £3 up here earlier on in the season. Clondor Castle's come out and done nothing but improve all year. Obviously won the old the old Racing Post Chase down at Kempton in good fashion. The yard, if you have a look at the yard statistics this year, they are probably the hottest yard in the country, bar none. Pay the Piper, Tommy's Oscar, Nutswell. The strike rate is phenomenal. And Anne Hamilton, don't underestimate Anna-Ian Hamilton. And Danny McMenamin on board to boot. Top conditional. If this was with a bigger yard, be shorter in the market without a shadow of a doubt. Nutswell, bang up there with the ratings. Likes the track, which is a big plus. Lightly raced as well, which is a big plus this season. And just ticks all the boxes. Jumps, travels, ground will be fine. I see no negatives at all. Politologue, he got put in his place last time out. I'll echo Ed's sentiments. I think juice in the ground is his key. They've put plenty of water on up at Aintree, but after the first day, you can only put so much on. And it's just a dry forecast. There's no rain at all around. That wind blowing 20 miles an hour, as quick as you could put it on, it'll be drying up. The old adage of something in the wind comes to mind.
just looking at Anne Hamilton's record this season, 33 runners she's had this season, 11 wins, so a strike rate of 33%. And interestingly, Nutswell is her only chaser, so only 2 chase starts this season and 2 wins as well. And I just want to ask you, Andrew, on that point you make, because it's something that basically whenever we do a podcast previewing a major festival, whether it's Cheltenham, Aintree, whether it's Ascot or Goodwood, if it's Nicky Henderson we're talking about, or John Gosden or whoever, the line is always, if this was trained by Gosden, if this was trained by Henderson, it would be a lot shorter. And you can probably say the same there about both Nutswell and Dashel Drasher, trained by Jeremy Scott as well. But then other people would argue, well, they're not trained by them. They're not trained by these masters of the game, and therefore the price is what it is, because you can probably trust Paul Nicholls or Joseph O'Brien to get more out of what they've got. So does that necessarily mean it's value, or is that just factored into the price, and that's why they're where they are in the market?
I think that's what people think, but it doesn't mean they're thinking correctly.
Yeah.
But what I would say, because they are top class trainers, just Anna-Ian Hamilton, this is their hobby. This is their, Ian's a farmer, but has a lot of cattle. They're stockmen, and hence the reason why they have good horses. Stockmen, it's no difference between seeing a bullock coming down the race to meet you between the eyes and how they look. They're animals, and they know how to get them ready and get them right. And it's the feeding's obviously very good, and same with Jeremy Scott as well. Always has had a certain amount of horses, and look what he did with Melodic Rendezvous going back. If the horse is good enough, it comes down to spending power as well. You need a bit of luck.
Of course.
They're not buying at the top. They're not buying the 6 figures. They're dealing further down the line, but they're getting value for money.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully getting a bit of value for money if you're backing them. The 2 that Andrew looks to be with there. On then to the 4:05, the Topham Handicap Chase. And Live, Love, Laugh is the favourite at the top of the market for Willie Mullins at 6-1, Far Class 7-1, Morning Vicar 10-1, Senior Citizen and 2 for Gold 12-1, Modus 14-1, Iblio 14-1, Caribbean Boy 14-1, 16-1 Bar. Loads in there at the moment. We can assume this is going to cut up a fair bit tomorrow. So we don't want to get too bogged down in the prices and things, because it'll look very, very different. But Ed, they call you Long Shot Ted for a reason. Give us the winner of the Topham, please.
Well, yeah. First of all, am I missing something with Live, Love, Laugh? I just don't understand this horse at all. Just never wins. It's 3 years since his last one. To me, it just looks an exposed 11-year-old, personally. So
I guess this is back down to kind of, it's the flip side of the conversation we were just having. You look at the connections, you look at the entries, and that's enough for some people to stick it in at a price which doesn't look right.
Happy to view to clip this up after and throw all kinds of gifts of rotten eggs at me, but I think he's a rancid. I don't follow it at all. Live, Life, Laugh. Not for me in a month of Sundays. Will run well and just won't win. I'm I've had 2 bets in this race, both from Nicky Henderson's stable. 2 Vida Field, 1 at the top of the weights, 1 at the bottom of the weights. 1 at the bottom of the weights is Morning Vicar. If you watch the Kim Muir back, this horse absolutely tanked round under Nico de Boinville before the old petrol gauge came on, approaching the 3-mile mark in that race. He jumped and travelled superbly, did not see out the 3 1/4 miles, back down to this distance. I think that's a big tick in the box. Only has 10-2 on his back. Nico de Boinville on board. Handicap has been very kind and dropped him £1 from last time out. Essentially, it's just his stamina gave way. That's all it was. I think he was actually my favourite in running 4 from home, and then, as I said, he just ran out of gas.
Was that when the winner was trading at 1,000?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then towards the top of the weights, Caribbean Boy from the same stable. Now, we talked about this one in the I actually tipped this horse for the plates in the Cheltenham Festival show we did. Now, anyone remembers the plate which was won by the shunter? This was the race. It was absolute farcical scenes at the start. I think it took about 4 attempts to get them off. They had to keep turning around. You can actually hear Daryl Jacob, who was on board Caribbean that day, remonstrating with Robbie Supple, like, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? Caribbean Boy's a front runner. He likes to bowl along in front and dictate. Well, they took a turn. He got trapped on the rail, caught basically behind a wall of horses, started to let them go. And you can see Daryl Jacob was visibly animated. I'm happy to put a line through that run. He actually ran pretty well. He picked off a load of runners late on to come up the hill and stay on into 7th. I just think that was just everything that... He lost the race at the start, essentially. I think here, if he can get off and get in a good rhythm, he's a wonderful jumper. He will love the ground. Of course, he swatted aside Fiddler on the Roof earlier in the season in a Grade 2. That form doesn't look too bad at all, considering that horse has just followed home Monkfish. And, of course, he's in handicap company here. Been eased £1. I just think, with no tomfoolery and histrionics at the start, if you can just get away in front, he's a really sound jumper who likes to bowl along. Very similar to like Bristol Demai in the fact that there's going to be no kind of cat and mouse and chess game here. They'll just want to get on with it. So, I'm Caribbean Boy and Morning Vicar, 2 for Nicky Henderson Vida Field, which is worth adding, does have an excellent record in this race, Nicky Henderson. I think he's won it 3 times in the last 7 years, and I think they look 2 ideal types for this race.
Morning Vicar 10-1 pretty much across the board. Paddy's and Betfair Sportsbook go 9-1, but they're the only 2 at the moment paying a fifth of 5, although you'd think as we get closer to probably tomorrow afternoon, I'm sure most firms will be. And Caribbean Boy 14-1, that's with Sky Bet, Paddy's and Betfair Sportsbook. So if you're quick now, you can get that 14-1 in the 5 places if you want it. Andrew?
My only worry with Caribbean Boy is a big field. I'm just not sure whether he's cut out for it. A lot of his wins have been in... I'm going to take you on, Ed, here.
Go for it. Yeah.
He's won once in a double-figure field in his career. And he's whether a big field suits him, as in what we said about Cheltenham. If you just miss the beat or you don't quite ping the first, because with this race, leave your brains in the weighing room and they go flat to the pan. And for that reason, the horse that I think will love the big field, and he's proven in is Farclass, who ran in the same race, is up a couple of pounds for finishing second to the best handicapped horse at the Cheltenham Festival. Was 3 lengths clear the rest. Lots of placed form in big figure fields. And for a 7-year-old, he's got a lot of experience. He's priced up accordingly. He's a double figure price at, was he 10 or 12-1?
Do you think he'll run, Andrew? Do you think he'll run? And I won't go for the Nash?
I don't know. Do you think you get the trip in the Nash?
I don't think he will. I was just really interested to see the O'Leary comments kind of inclinating they'll roll the dice to the Nash. But I agree with you. This must be the race for him because I can't see how he get the trick in the Nash.
Given the experience over the fences first, and then because I just can't. It looks to me like he's got too much pace for a national anyway. So, I think Morning Vicar. I think James Boy might be riding him and Nico and Precious Cargo, which is no bad thing. Having a great run of things at the moment. 2 for Gold will be interesting. That's my problem with Caribbean. But I just wonder whether he's going to get the soft lead with the likes of 2 for Gold. My way. They line up like it's a cavalry charge. Darrell is going to have to be out the gate, and he's absolutely going to have to be gone on him. Ibio. We all saw how that horse stayed on Iblio Venetia's. Although he's got top weight, if the ground's on the good side, weight doesn't bother you. And the way if we said it to Cheltenham, over that trip, over an extra 100 yards, flip it, he'd have been winning the race by 200 yards. He'd have won by 5 lengths, I would think. So this trip looks to be his gig. He's a traveller. I definitely put him in the mix because he's a horse that will travel. He's very slick and quick with his jumping, and I think he'd be able to hold a good early position. And he still looks the type that's unexposed. He looks to me like a graded horse running in a handicap. And I think further down the line, I think you could see, I'd be very interested to see where this would be one of Venetia's top horses for next season in my book.
Yeah, absolutely. Iblio is currently 14-1. I'm just trying to find a price because on the oddschecker grids, it suggests that the current trading price for Farclas is, I mean, you can back Farclas at 32, 30, 28 at the moment.
That suggests not what we got.
That would suggest that Farclas will be going for the Grand National. Of course, Connections have a role to fill in the Grand National. So maybe Farclas will be there. And obviously Farclas finishing just 3 lengths behind one of the greatest Cheltenham plots we've seen in the shunter at the festival a few weeks ago after being well backed himself. We'll move on then to the Sefton, the final race we'll be previewing in this Friday preview of Aintree of the Grand National Festival. And Brave Man's Game is the 9-4 favourite ahead of Cape Gentleman at 7-1. That old horse, the shunter's there, 8-1, probably won't be running. Streets of Doyen, 8-1, Oscar Elite, 10-1, a host of horses at 10-1 or bigger. And, let's focus on Brave Man's Game to start, Andrew, because, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying it was embarrassing, but I think we saw quite how far, I mean, it was the story of the whole festival was how far clear the Irish horses were, but never was that more evident than in the novice hurdles, where Brave Man's Game ended up finishing 12 lengths behind Bob Ollinger there. Here, again, coming up against some Irish thoughts, and at 9-4, they may not have the star quality, let's say, of the two he finished behind that day. But would you be rushing to back an English novice at that price at a major festival at the moment?
He was, I think Brave Man's Game ran his race. Yeah. Personally, I do think he ran his race because you look back at the Challow form, that's what you were banking on, and I think people had hung on the words that Paul Nicholls had mentioned, Denman, but that's all he'd done, You're seeing more of he's very clean over his hurdles. I think the track will suit him better than, I just think he just wasn't good enough. He wasn't good enough for Cheltenham, and he was just found out. So, the Irish horses are just better. End of story. But, it's a bit like move on. But is he going to be good enough in this race? Well, it's definitely, looking at the race itself, it's a grade one in name only, I would suggest. Yeah. It just doesn't really have a grade one feel to it. When you've got the likes of Cape Gentleman, who obviously came over and put our runners to the sword at Kempton, didn't go to Cheltenham. Calico, the horse that finished second, is quite highly thought of. Streets of Doyen, he's been exceptionally busy so far this season. He was beaten about the same distance behind Vanillier as what Brave Man's Game was behind Bob Ollinger. I think what you've got to put into perspective is if Appreciated had lined up against Bob Ollinger, which is certainly a possible, I think Bob Ollinger would come out on top. Wow. Personally, because Appreciated blew the field apart. Obviously, Willie Mullins' other horse fell at the second last. But I think the Bob Ollinger would. I think that's why, with Appreciated, they wanted to drop back to 2 miles because they didn't want to take on Bob Ollinger. Yeah. So if you take a line through that, where would you put Vanillier into the equation? Well, he'd be third, wouldn't he? I don't think Streets of Doyen's fun. I think you might. It's a race like this that I think if you look a bit further down the list, then, well, Oscar Elite. Why wouldn't Oscar Elite finish in front of Streets of Doyen? I think the Tizzards, remember, was it 3 years ago they had a terrible Cheltenham Festival and then suddenly went to Aintree? They've got to, they've got to click.
Yeah.
They've got to click. They had some horses that were ridden to run very well at Cheltenham. Eldorado and Allen, brilliant ride to be placed. Fiddler on the Roof, good ride to be placed. Oscar Elite, good ride to be placed. So I think they might nick a grade 1 here. I think I'd be going Oscar Elite as an each way proposition.
Oscar Elite 10-1 best price currently with Bet365. Ed?
Yeah, I agree with a lot. Andrew's sentiment there is not a strong race at all. I mean, if you look at it, you've got the Shunter, who bizarrely is the highest rated horse in the field. You've got Brave Man's Game, your Chantry Hurdle winner. So they're rated 153 and 150 respectively. Then you've got a whole host of 130 something, I don't want to be offensive, but glorified handicappers come. I mean, crikey, this is not a strong grade 1 by any stretch of imagination. I would be with Andrew here. Thought Oscar Elite travelled really well, and I think perhaps this flatter track, a better ground will suit him here. The only worry again is we've been harping on about it seems every show. I think on the October show, someone reminded me I was moaning about Colin Tizzard form that they've had one winner since the Cheltenham Festival. They've gone absolutely cold again, haven't they?
And it looked like they were just coming to the boil as
well. Exactly, they fired in a double. They fired in a double, didn't they? The Monday before the festival, and it all started looking rosy again. I think they've had one winner from the last 30 runners again, and it's all just seems. I cannot work that hard out. But Oscar Elite, you watch the Albert Bartlett back, he was going as well as anything coming to 2 out. And still ran really well, I think it has to be said, behind a runaway winner. Yeah, I'd be Oscar Elite each way, but I must stress, this race is a real head scratcher. Paul Nicholls didn't seem overly confident about, again, touching upon the freshness angle. All the quotes come from Paul Nicholls are, look, we know Brave Man's Game's very good. He ran a really good race. He's a Chantry Hurdle winner, but it's a quick enough turnaround between Cheltenham and Aintree. We keep hearing that line rolled out, which makes me think, look, I think Brave Man's Game, it's all about experience. And next year, he's going to be a cracking chaser. So whether he comes 5th or whether he wins, I don't think Paul Nicholls ultimately going to be that bothered. I think it's just going to be one more run for the season, put him away, and you'll see him in the Newbury, the Ladbrokes Trophy meeting in a 3-mile Grade 2 Novice Chase, essentially. So, yeah, I'm with Andrew. Oscar Elite each way. I think he'll travel well into the race.
And hopefully there'll be fans in the stands at Newbury to see that in a few months' time. That brings us to a close of our Friday preview. Both Ed and Andrew agreeing that Oscar Elite the value in the 440. There is a 515 and a 145, 2 handicap hurdles that flank the graded races, but there are no prices at the moment, and we're not going to start picking through 54 entries and trying to work out where we're going without there being any prices. But I'm sure on the day, Andy Holding might well have a couple of tips. So do download the oddschecker app to get them direct to your phone, and you get everything else as well. What oddschecker is all about, with best prices, best bookie offers, free bets, place terms, and all the rest too. Thank you very much to both Ed Quigley and to Andrew Thornton for joining me today. If the racing on Thursday hasn't happened yet, then do go back and listen or watch our preview. You can find it on all podcast channels and on the oddschecker YouTube channel as well. Do subscribe there. Please do enjoy the racing. We'll be doing a Saturday preview for the Grand National with Andrew Thornton and Andy Holding on Thursday. We've got a Masters preview out with Niall Lyons and Ben Coley. I'm absolutely exhausted, but enjoy the weekend sport. And most importantly, please do gamble responsibly.